Also hier haben wir die Präsentation von Tiago Guardia. Tiago ist wissenschaftlich engagiert. Er ist aus Brasilien und arbeitet jetzt auch in Kanada mit dem Abitherapiezentrum von Eduard Unger zusammen. Und dort forscht er die Bestandteile der Bienenstockluft. Und hier hat er eine Präsentation zusammengestellt, die sich um die chemischen Bestandteile der Bienenstockluft zusammenfasst. Genau. Dann lasse ich das jetzt mal kurz laufen.
Hi everyone, welcome to this presentation. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Tiago Guardia, and in this presentation I'm going to share with you the results of some studies on identifying the chemical compounds of beehive air. So identifying the chemical compounds of the beehive air is a very important step towards making this therapy recognized and validated by modern science. And by doing that, we will be able to expand this work and help even more people with this beautiful therapy. But before I start talking about the components of the beehive air, I always like to remind all of us, including myself, that the wholeness of the healing power of honeybees is much wider than the requirements made by modern science. So essentially what modern medicine needs to validate apitherapy is having a better understanding of the pharmacological effects of the products of the hive in the physical body. However, several Asian civilizations recognized the bees as sacred beings because they knew they could be inspired by the bees and not only use the products of the hive to heal the body, but also they had the bees as a reference of enlightened beings. So if we know how to do it, we can access a whole source of health, inspiration, and consciousness inside the hive. And what I want to highlight here in this context of beehive air therapy is that when we are breathing the air of the beehive to improve our health, there is much more than just molecules playing a role in the healing process. For example, if the therapist and the patient are aware and able to work with the bioenergetic levels, let's say for example by incorporating techniques from traditional Chinese medicine or guided meditations, the healing process tends to be wider, more meaningful, consistent, and efficient. So I really recommend interested people study those topics so we can have an ethic and a more profound relationship with the bees, in addition to conduct more powerful therapeutic experiences. And since we are here in this very special conference that's all about beehive air therapy, and at this point of the event we already had presentations that introduced the topic very well, I don't feel I need to reintroduce beehive therapy, but I just want to say that behavior therapy has been used to promote well-being and treat different diseases of the respiratory system, improve respiratory capacity, regulate the immune system, and even help people suffering from depression. This is all amazing, but we need to take a step further with this therapy by moving from anecdotal successful cases to evidence-based practice. So each one of the products elaborated by the bees has an incredibly rich chemical composition, and the environment inside the hive is rich and chemically complex. If we consider all the products of the bees, there are thousands of different molecules inside the hive, and the volatile compounds also combine one to another, thereby creating new compounds in the air. Overall, hundreds of volatile compounds have already been found in the bees' products when they were analyzed separately. And those volatile compounds are classified in a variety of chemical categories as shown in this table. Each column shows the list of the chemical classes of the volatile compounds found in wax, honey, pollen, propolis, royal jelly, and bee venom. Previous research has also shown that the inhalation of some of the isolated volatile compounds found in propolis and honey are beneficial for treating respiratory diseases. However, there is no such reference yet for the effects of the beehive air inhalation therapy. Therefore, specific studies are needed to make this technique validated by modern science and safely used as a natural or complementary medicine practice. In terms of scientific advances for supporting this therapy, studies have already started to identify the chemical composition of the air of the beehive. And now I'm going to share the main findings of two studies. The first one is a pilot study I developed with some collaborators in Brazil in 2017, in which we identified the chemical classes of some of the compounds of the air of the hive. And the second one is a beautiful and very relevant study published in 2021, in which the authors identified a number of volatile components of the air of the hive, in addition to demonstrate some of its antimicrobial properties. In the pilot study we did in Brazil, we used different types of instruments that are commonly used in analysis of gases research to collect and store the air of beehives. I won't go over all the technical details here, but as a pilot study, the first goal was to define the best approach to study the composition of the air of the hive. And to do that, we collected a few samples using different storage instruments and extraction techniques, as demonstrated in the table on the right hand side of the screen. Then we analyzed the samples of the air into the gas chromatography and mass spectrometry system. There's a lot of technology involved here in this system, but essentially what happens within this system is that each volatile compound is separated based on their chemical properties. And then in the end, the system gives as a result a chromatographic profile, which is a kind of molecular signature for each of those compounds that could be isolated. Then, based on the molecular signature, each chemical compound can be identified by performing further analysis. In terms of results of this pilot study, we found that activated carbon glass tubes and further volatile compound extraction in dichlorometane that were the most effective method for extracting and separating the compounds of the beehive air. We also could isolate 15 chemical compounds from the air of the hive. In the middle of the screen, we have a screenshot showing the sequence of peaks that represents the isolated compounds coming out of the system. And then at the bottom, there is the molecular profile of one of those compounds. Then, in the table on the right-hand side of the screen, there is this list of compounds we isolated associated with their molecular signature. Then, as a final result of this pilot study, we got a list of the 25 most likely chemical identifications for each one of the compounds we have separated, associated with their formulas and chemical categories. So to summarize, the molecular profile of the compounds we isolated, associated with the chemical categories of their potential molecular identification, is the main contribution of this pilot study. Then the authors of the second study took a step further by identifying more than 40 compounds in the air of the hive, therefore making a substantial contribution to the area. And here is the list of the compounds they have identified in the air of the beehive associated with their names and chemical classes. I won't dive into this list in this presentation, but tomorrow I'll be giving a presentation that's totally focused on the pharmacology of the beehive air therapy. This study also demonstrated that among the products of the hive, the profile of the volatile compounds from the body of the bees is the one that most resembles the profile of the air of the beehive, which means that the richness of the aroma of the hive is mostly influenced by the volatile molecules released by the body of the bees. In my opinion, this is amazing, and it opens opportunity for a whole line of research in the future on bioresonance and biofield therapy integrated to the beehive air therapy. Finally, this study has also shown some antimicrobial properties of the air of the hive, which was tested against different types of bacteria that can affect the respiratory system. This finding certainly brings the conversation to the next level by demonstrating evidence that the air of the beehive can potentially be effective to treat respiratory disorders. But of course, clinical demonstrations are still necessary. In addition to developing studies on the pharmacology of beehive air therapy, conducting clinical trials is also absolutely essential in the path of regulating the beehive air therapy and making this therapy safely and widely available to people. And here I would like to propose the development of an international multi-center clinical study on the efficiency and safety of the beehive air therapy. Currently, my partners and I are starting to plan the design of the clinical trials, and we are also looking for more supportive partners, additional sites to conduct the trials, fundings, etc. Currently, the BYZ Therapy Wellness Center in Canada is getting ready for collaborating with this and other studies. Their place is absolutely amazing and a beautiful work has been done there. Next spring, a very well-structured beehive air therapy room will be available to serve people, do research and collaborate with this international initiative on validating beehive air therapy in modern medicine. Then, the last thing I want to say here is that collaboration is needed and welcome. In case you are interested or know who might be interested in collaborating with this study, please contact me. And that's it for this presentation. Thank you very much for watching it. I really appreciate your interest in this topic. If you want, please feel free to contact me by email tiago@pranahiveom.com or visit my website pranahiveom.com.